Good morning, everybody. This is Paul with Torah Life Ministries, and we are doing our daily Bible reading. We do this here every day, and we're ripped to the book of Esther, the 6th chapter of Esther. We're going to start off with prayer this morning. So we're going to do the Shema, and then we'll do the reading. And it's so important to read the scriptures live, or to just read the scriptures every day. And to be able to do this here with you, it's just an honor, a privilege, and I pray that you're learning from it as much as I am. Shema Yisrael, Yahweh Eloheinu, Yahweh Echad, Baruch Shem Kivo, Malchuto Leolam Vaed. Hear, O Israel, Yahweh is our Elohim, Yahweh is one, and you shall love Yahweh with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your might. And have these words as I command you this day be upon your heart, and you shall teach them diligently to your children, and speak of them when you sit in your house, when you walk by the way, when you retire, and when you arise. And you shall bind them for a sign upon your hand, and let them be frontlets between your eyes. And you shall write them on the doorposts of your house and upon your great gates. All right, everybody. So grab that, and we're going to start reading Esther, chapter 6. Now, when we left off in chapter 5, Haman's wife suggested that they find a way to set up a big sharp pole, 75 feet tall, and in the morning he asked the king to impale Mordecai. And so that this was suggestion came from his wife. Well, in chapter 6 it says, that night the king had trouble sleeping, so he ordered an attendant to bring the book of history of his reign so it could be read to him. In those records, he discovered an account of how Mordecai had exposed the plot of the Bigthana and Tisra, two of the eunuchs who guarded the door to the king's private quarters. They had plotted to assassinate King Xerxes. And the note we read here says, unable to sleep, the king declared to review the history of his reign. And his servants read about him, about Mordecai's good deed. This seems coincidental, but Yahweh is always at work. Yahweh has been working quietly and patiently throughout your life as well. The events that have come together for good are not mere coincidences. They are the result of good sovereign control over the course of the people's lives. Romans 8:28. So as we read this, we continue. Verse 3 says, what reward or recognition did we ever give Mordecai? The king asked. His attendants replied, nothing has been done for him. Who is it that in that outer court? The king inquired. As it happened, Haman had just arrived in the outer court and of the palace and asked the king to impale Mordecai on a pole he had prepared. So the attendants replied to the king, Haman is out in the court. Bring him in, the king ordered. So Haman came in, and the king said, what should I do to honor a man who truly pleases me? Haman thought to himself, whom the king wished to honor more than me? So now we read verse 7. So he replied, if the king wishes to honor someone, he should bring out one of the king's own royal robes, as well as a horse that the king himself has ridden, one with a royal emblem on its head. And so verse 8, well, verse 9. Let the robe and the horse be handed over to one of the king's most noble officers, and let him see that the man whom the king wishes to honor is dressed in the king's robe and led through the city square on the king's horse. Have the officials shout as they go, this is what the king does for someone he wishes to honor. So now we read the note for this. It says, Haman had wealth, but he craved something even his money couldn't buy: respect. He could buy the trappings of success and power, but his lust for popularity had become an obsession. Don't let your desire for approval appease the popularity drive in your immoral actions. Very, very important lesson here. Just like every scriptures, every book has such an important lesson. And to me, like one of the most important things I see here is that Yahweh is at work, always working, and Yahweh's at work here. So the king says in verse 10, "Excellent," the king said to Haman, "quick, take the robe and my horse, and do just as you have said for Mordecai, the Jewish person who sits at the gate of the palace. Leave out nothing you have suggested." So Haman took the robe and put them on Mordecai, placed him on the king's own horse, and led him through the city square, shouting, "This is what the king does for someone who he wishes to honor." After Mordecai returned to the palace gate, but Haman hurried home, dejected and completely humiliated. When Haman told his wife Zeresh and his friends what had happened, his wife advisors and his wisers and wife said, "Since Mordecai is the man who has humiliated you, is one of Jewish birth, you will never succeed your plans against him. It will be fatal to continue opposing him." So this came from supposedly wise men that were speaking to him and also his wife. And they can, there's just terrible advice they gave this man. So it says here, Mordecai had exposed a plot to assassinate King Xerxes. Thus, he had saved the king's life. Although this good deed was recorded in history books, Mordecai had was unrewarded. But Yahweh was saving Mordecai's reward for the right time. Just as Haman was about to impale Mordecai unjustly, the king was ready to give him a reward. Although Yahweh promised to reward our good deeds, we sometimes feel our payoff is too far away. Be patient. Yahweh steps in and does when it will do the most good. Yes. So we have to remember, and we see the difference of the humbleness of Mordecai and Haman and his desire for just popularity and it's just a completely opposite. And this is the difference between a believer in Yeshua and the world. This is the difference we're looking at. So verse 14 says, while they were still talking, the king's eunuchs arrived and quickly took Haman to the banquet Esther had prepared. So Haman didn't even have time to react to the situation, and then he was taken almost immediately to go to this banquet that Esther had prepared. So the timing of everything, and the king's heart was getting stirred up, and the timing of everything. And we're going to look at the next chapter 7, and we're going to see this come to fruition. Now, some chapters in the Bible are quite long, as we're going to be reading them. This one is a much shorter chapter and book. But don't forget, this thing is out there that still says all the Jewish people will be killed on this particular day. And the king still did not know that Esther his queen was Jewish. So he's about to find out in chapter 7, and he's about to find out what this was being done, Haman was doing here. So the king wasn't keeping up on his records. He probably didn't even know what Haman was up to with the Jewish people, but he's about to find out in the next chapter. So I do this because it's so important to read the words of our Creator. And some of you have been reading with me for a while, but we need to finish this. We need to finish the scriptures. Any chapter, anytime, you can just look it up on my website, and you can see me reading these to discuss this with you. So I pray you're blessed today and you read this today. And yes, we need to take the time to read our word. It is the words of our Creator. Until then, everybody, have a blessed day. Yahweh be with you all. Shalom, shalom.